Francesca?
First?
Yeah.
Me, Francesca. And then we've got word from other people, and so does he. So it's
Good.
us and our messages
Representing
received from
and,
friends and other. And she's gonna say, kiss stuff and pass stuff. Good job, Chelsea.
Really nice.
But you, we take our mask off this week, so
Yeah, I think
it's
so.
sort of our way.
Try not to touch and cough on too much.
You know,
Well, when we first started doing this, we have to sanitize the microphone for some reason. But no one put their mouth to it. You were licking it. I wasn't sure.
Sure,
What it was.
yeah.
So you get a wipe and you need wipe and stuff down and put in the mic. It was like, I wasn't sure what that was all about. Yeah. That's a great setup. Lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, almost this week.
It's gonna go on. Can I shake a little bit?
Well, every once in a while, I splurge on
We just have like this
clothing.
clothes because she was.
So tell me, Chester,
Yeah.
you're in university now? What do you take?
Is she in here?
So you're gonna work for BC Lab or Mini Lab or what? You have a date? So you're doing, what would you be? Yeah. So a company takes you on during the summer and you do your practical?
This is really important to her. This POC annual.
How many more years do you have in school? Very good. Well, all the best. Dad? Sure. Those are the sisters then, right?
Yes. Yeah, so this one here, Sally, will be here today.
Sounds good. And then Joe and
Judy.
Okay. That's you guys?
Yeah. Matching haircuts.
Yeah, I like that. Easy haircut.
Come on in. We have the seating's a little different, so I'll back down here. Want to sit in the front on this side?
So your last up.
Nobody does it nicer.
want to thank you as family for the opportunity, which is mine, to be with you today. Aunt Sally, hello. Nice to have you here. Margaret Elizabeth Warwick. What was the maiden name?
Chilcott.
Chilcott, yeah. She's in the book down there at the bottom. And I did a quick little comparison, and sure enough, there she was, just as an older girl. It was A.W. Tozer who wrote a book called Of God and Men. He said the problem with North America was that we had little passion. He said we were swimming pools 200 feet by 100 feet, but only an inch deep. And then I heard stories of your mom, and I found it's exact opposite. Your mom had passion for things that she appreciated. She was all in, poker term, right? And she supported not just family and Charlie and Ed and Jane and grandchildren, but she was connected deeply to her community. And I just kind of marveled after our time together, Jane and Ed, we were sitting outside having coffee and just talking about your mom, and I thought, there she is. There's the exact opposite of what I had read just, weeks previous. To the grandkids, whether live streaming or sitting with us, and Chaska, our little conversation about you being in university and what you're going to apply your talents to. To the grandkids, if you can be even half as connected to your community as your grandmother, we are in good hands. And so to those that are with us, those again live streaming with us in different places, to everybody on the East Coast connected to Ed, thank you for being with us. During this pandemic, of course, our numbers have been limited. We used to have this chapel full, and I'm sure we could do it easily for Mom. But they have restricted those that can be here with us, and yet through technology, we have the ability to connect with others that aren't physically with us. And truly, our numbers then are not limited by any way, but in fact, just developed. I mean, I'm not sure how many can see us online, but if it's just double our number here or, 50 times, it's important for us to say thank you to Mom for all that she's done. And not just today, because sometime during the spring or summer when there are no restrictions, when you get together again to celebrate her, that's when you truly will be able to tip your hat in its fullest capacity and say to Beth, well done. I'm going to open with a simple word of prayer, ask God to bless us, thank Him for giving us this opportunity, and then we'll get into blessing Beth. Let's pray. Father, thank you for the day you've granted to us. Thank you for this family and for Mom, for Beth, for the blessing she was to her parents and sisters, and then of course to Charlie, to Ed, to Jane, to family. As we come today, we ask you just to be with us. Guide and direct us. Thank you for all the people that have shared their love story with Beth that we will represent today, and for all the elements that make a service possible, for the staff here at North Van and our videographer, for all of us. Just bless us, we pray, this day. Amen. In all that you do, you come really for three reasons, but I'm going to add a fourth, and the fourth is actually the first thing I want to mention. There's only been in 20 years of officiating 3 times in which nobody came to a service. That's a very, very small percentage. So what we did all 3 times is we brought in staff, and staff sat in the service. Because it's important for every individual to have a gathering. There is significance in people coming together under, of course, Mom's name to celebrate. So even though there wasn't anyone here, there were a few, and we videotaped all 3 sessions where no one came. And we still celebrated the individual's life. We had little information, if not any. But it's important for the gathering, so thank you for coming today. Secondly, then, you remember, right? That's what we talked about. A great photo of you guys at Lake Louise. You know, it's like, you guys are small, you know? You got to remember beginning's journey story. For yourself, Sally and Joe and Judy, you need to remember back when your big sister kind of ruled your roost, right? When you guys were smaller. We talk about the individual as it applies to all these different roles, and that's where we honor Mom. So we gather, we remember, and then we honor. Sister and daughter, niece and cousin, wife and mother, grandmother, neighbor, coworker, friend, teacher. You guys mentioned before Ed was born, right? These are roles that, well, that Beth deserves to have honored, right? Not just again today, but as you get older and grandchildren, as you have your own families, you look back and you say, yeah, you know, she always needs to be honored. And then lastly, you celebrate. You celebrate unique life. Again, for me, and I know, Ed, you're going to come and talk about this, her passion for connection to community and to the environment. That's a unique feature. You celebrate genetically the fact that Sebastian and Chaska, Tatiana, Sophie, Malcolm, and Maggie, they carry 1/4 of their grandmother with them, literally. You guys are copies of Mom and Dad. And of course, you're also copies of grandparents of Mom and Dad, and you just carry that forward. You lose Mom in her entirety, yes, when she passes, but we have half of Mom, sort of, with Sally. Definitely have 2 halves here, which is a whole. 3 grandchildren, which is 3/4, so we have a whole and 3/4, plus a little bit of a half, you know. You got to think of it in those terms. And the other thing you celebrate is the fact that you have her memory. It would be an immense tragedy if when a person dies, their memories were wiped from our hard drive. And you just didn't know anything about the person after they were gone. It's exact opposite. That's why we gathered, to celebrate Mom's goodness. And I'm going to use just 2 verses of not an obscure passage, because the passage itself is quite famous. Ecclesiastes 3, 1-8 is, there's a time for everything, a season for every activity under heaven, time to be born, a time to die. Then the author goes through kind of a list of opposites, in which he's stating that most of humanity kind of bumps between these 2, you know, extremes. And we end with, there's a time for war and a time for peace, a time to love and a time to hate. That's verse 8. And that's where we end. But really, there are 2 absolutely treasures, 2 verses that follow that are never usually read. And they are this, and it applies so much to your mom. The author writes, I know there's nothing better for men and women than to be happy and to do good while they live, that everyone may eat, drink, and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is a gift from God. That's your mom. You know, worked hard, raised her family, loved her husband, and then cranked it out in the community. Book clubs and outdoor stuff and skiing, and, you know, your mom just gave her. She was a Nike commercial. You know, just do it. And she would go home at night, I'm sure, put her head down on her pillow, maybe turn to Dad, and she'd say, another good day. That was a gift. You guys have thousands of gifts from her that are stored in the heart. It's like that Indiana Jones last scene from the first movie where the guy's got the box on the little forklift, and then you see this huge warehouse of all these boxes. That's your guys' hearts and souls from your mom. Just another beautiful gift. And today, by the way, is a gift from her still. We're coming today to find satisfaction in the toil of saying goodbye. And there's a bow on top of that one. It's Mom's love. To sit with you guys for 30 minutes, was it? Maybe a little longer. And to hear about the love that your mom had for you always makes me just beam as I leave. Another family blessed by a good woman. So to Beth, I tip my hat and I say to you, well done. I know that you would have heard that on the other side. And what we do then is we add oral history to celebration. We've been doing it for about 8,000 years. Family's going to come, and they're going to share not only their thoughts, but the thoughts of others. And in doing so, we're going to say thank you, capital T, thank you, to Beth for all that she's done. I'll make my way to the back. I'm going to sit and listen. I always enjoy this portion, because it is small g greatness. The right woman in the right place at the right time with the right people making a huge difference. That's what we're here to do. Say thanks. Jane, if you would.
Thank you, Leighton. That was very lovely. So I'm Jane, Beth's daughter. It's kind of funny because the room is somewhat empty right now due to the pandemic, but thank you for all of you that are listening online, and to all Mom's friends. My brother and I were, preparing this and saying, wow, we didn't realize how many friends Mom had when we started to make the list for who to invite and, rummage through old photos and things. Yeah, she had a lot of very, very good friends. And a lot of them in the last couple months I've been hearing from by email and cards and things, and I really want to say thank you so much. Those meant a lot when Mom was in the hospital and now. So, okay. So Ed and I also said how much we've learned about our mom, which things that you think you spend your whole life with them, you know everything, but we don't. We didn't. We've learned a lot just looking through her things this last week. Many, many things in her house that she has. But I put together some memories from just going through my life, and then I've also got some messages from friends of my mom that I will share with you. The first memory I have, I was trying to think, what could I remember from being really young? And my first memory, for what it's worth, was I just remember being a little kid, wrapping in a blanket, sitting on her lap and eating Rice Krispies with milk at the kitchen table. And I don't know why. Ed and I, we called our blankets poofs. We don't know why, but I was wrapped in my poof. And I think it was something to do with a cleaning lady, a German cleaning lady, calling them poofs. Yeah. So that's one of my early memories. During my school years, my mom was a Brownie and Girl Guide leader. At first that was good, and then you get to an age where, you're kind of like, oh, my mom, always with my mom. But now I look back on it, and I really do appreciate it and realize how important that was and how lucky I was that she did that. Other things I remember with her is going to Valley Bakery, getting Valley Bakery birthday cakes, which to this day are still a favorite with my family. And even in the last few months, Tatiana and I would drive up to Valley Bakery with Grandma, and Grandma would wait in the car, and one of us would go in with our mask and get some Valley Bakery treats. And most of them are the exact same that they were like when I was a little kid. They've got the same cookies. And so that's a memory. Another great memory, Christmas and Thanksgiving. We would alternate going to Auntie Sally's house and in North Van and to our house, and Mom would always set the table very perfectly. She would bring out the good silver and linen tablecloth, and she would find the right candles for to match everything, and she always made everything very, very lovely and perfect and precise on the table. Very much a perfectionist, and she took great pride in those tables. I try to do the same, but it doesn't quite come out quite as well as Mom's always did. I remember in our young years we would go up to Kelowna and we would ski Big White. My grandparents lived in Kelowna, and we would go with my Auntie Jo and my mom and my cousins, and we would go skiing at Big White, and those were some of our funnest memories. And sometimes we would ski with other friends my mom had met back at UBC. Always an adventure on those trips. My mom was a very patient person. I think that everybody would agree to that. I can tell you that during my teenage years, my mom was good at turning a blind eye to a lot of my shenanigans. Appreciated that, Mom. In my early 20s, I was living in the UK, and some friends and I decided we wanted to go to Austria and be ski bums for a season. So we bought a cheap car and we drove to Austria and got jobs. And I thought, oh, my mom's really going to be proud of me for this. Look at this adventure I'm on. So I phoned her up and I said, my monthly call, and it probably wasn't even monthly, it was about every 3 months I'd phone home. And, I excitedly told her, guess what, I'm in Austria and I'm at this beautiful resort and I'm going to stay here and be a ski bum. And the resort's called St. Anton. And she's like, oh, yes, St. Anton. Yeah, that's where I was when I was in my 20s, too. Turns out she'd been there and done that. She had stayed in the exact same resort of all the resorts in Europe. So it's kind of a funny coincidence. So once Ed and I had kids, Mom was a real lifesaver to us, helping out with the kids. She always had a great selection of carefully chosen toys for the kids. They felt very at home at her house. Every birthday and Christmas, books were very important to my mom, and she would drive down to Kids Book Store in Vancouver to find out what the best children's books were and consult with the people working there and put a lot of thought into it. She'd always give them really appropriate, great books for each one of them, well chosen as gifts. And then in the later years, my mom, she would come to our house weekly for dinner. And then that was always a nice time together, and sometimes my husband's family would be there too, or some of my friends, so they got to know her too. Once the pandemic hit, I spent a lot of time with my mom just sitting on her back porch in our masks, just chit-chatting, and she would go in the house and get blankets for us because I didn't want to go in the house, and so we'd be wrapped up sitting on lawn chairs on cold days, and we would talk about often Donald Trump and the craziness going on in the States, or she'd be telling me about the latest book she read, or maybe an article from the Globe and Mail about something interesting. And so I feel like I was always learning from my mom. She always had something that I would walk away thinking, oh, I learned something new from her. When she was in the hospital, the palliative care doctor asked me what she was like. And I said, oh, she grew up on the North Shore and she spent a lot of her time hiking and skiing, loved to go camping. She went to UBC, she was passionate about the environment. And I think the doctor summed it up well. And she said, wow, your mom was a true West Coaster. And I thought, yeah, you know what she is? She was an early adapter. She was very much a West Coast person. And yeah, she was an exceptional mom, and I think I was very lucky to have her. So now I have a few, well, this isn't going on too long, but I have a few things to read from people that sent some memories of her. From her sister Judy, so Judy's the youngest. Judy sent a long, lovely letter to my brother and I. I'm just going to read a few things from it. She talks about first memories going back to Christmas when they were kids. Dad and Dr. Grundy would take us out in the bush behind our houses, and we'd find the most perfect tree imaginable. Dr. Grundy always got 2 trees, cut them in half, and used the bottom of one and the top of the other. Trying to imagine that, but okay, yeah, like to get the perfect tree. When we decorated the trees, Beth had the patience of a saint. Lights back then were all on one circuit, and if one bulb went out, the whole string went out. Beth would spend a lot of time testing every light and getting them back working. Each light had a metal reflector that went on behind the bulb, and Beth made sure the color combinations were all good. My best Christmas memory was when I was 6 and Beth was 12. After Christmas, she gathered up all the 1/4-inch silk ribbon and used it to teach me to knit. I'm left-handed, so she figured it out backwards for me. Still boggles my mind that she could do that at such a young age. I still knit that way, and I reverse all the directions so the patterns work for me. Amazing. Auntie Judy also talks about a road trip her and Mom went on in Mom's little car when they drove down through Montana. And then they were camping at Glacier National Park, and some fun stories there. She said Beth was always very intense with everything, and when her mind was on one thing, it just stayed there. Many times in the winter, she went off to UBC and left the back door wide open. Beth and I, so more recently, speaking of now, Beth and I had what we called sister days, and I'd go and stay with her for a few days, and we'd just hang out and be tourists in Vancouver. At one time, I'd been working with Tourism Vancouver to plan a large convention, and they gave me 2 passes for all the events in Vancouver. Bus tour, Science World, Aquarium, Grouse Mountain, etc. We used them all and had a wonderful time. Poor Charlie stayed home and had supper ready for us. He was wonderful that way, which he was. Beth and I would sit at a table and do jigsaws or play, very poorly, duets on the piano. Lots of times we talked about American politics. We were both disgusted with Trump. And then towards the end, she says, I have a lot of friends in many parts of the US and Canada, and when some would visit Vancouver, I'd go to Beth's and we'd take them around town. I remember telling my friends from Hawaii that Beth was the smart one and I was the creative one. She took exception to that and said that she was creative too, although she didn't say that I was smart too. I do love her and miss her, from Judy. I have another note from my mom's dear friend Marilee. Marilee is a member of my mom's book group, which was a group of women who are very close friends to her, especially in the last 20, 30 years. I think they met teaching ESL. So Marilee says, Beth was a dear friend who I'll greatly miss after about 30 years of knowing her. I'll certainly miss all of the long weekly calls during the past year where we discussed such a wide range of topics. She was a kind and friendly woman with so many interests, from natural history to politics. In the Vancouver South Hill Education Centre, she taught beginners English for many classes of adult students, where she used all kinds of ideas to make the instruction interesting and applicable to her students. Our book club will certainly miss her organizational skills for keeping us on track and regularly meeting. I still have fond memories of the delicious blueberry buckle cake that she baked whenever our book club meeting was held at her house. I will miss my talks with her, and she will remain a very fond memory in my mind. From Marilee Schlepp. Two more. One is from my mom's friend Eva Nagy, a dear friend of my mom's from Natural History group. Eva says, I knew of Beth a long time before we started going to programs together. She was the volunteer camp registrar at Nature Vancouver for many years. One day she came on the nature walk I was leading in Campbell Valley Park. She said she was there. She said there were more interesting hikes on that day, but she was kind of depressed, and I'm always cheerful, so she was hoping I would cheer her up. Well, I don't know if I succeeded, but from then on we did many programs together. Besides going to wonderful BC nature camps in different parts of beautiful BC, we used to go to the Metropolitan Opera presentations on Saturday mornings and the almost free concerts at the Chan Centre with several other girls from Nature Vancouver. Before the concert, we liked to have supper somewhere, and those were the highlights of the long winter months. These also invited long drives and amiable chats on the way. Beth was the first person I used to pick up, and we dropped off the other ladies early so the two of us could spend more time together on those trips. I will forever miss her company on the last stretch of those trips, once we return back to normal after the pandemic. Beth was an avid reader, and whenever I asked her, she always suggested something really interesting to read. Several of the most enjoyable books I read were advised by Beth. I will really miss her great ideas. And as a wonderful friend, one year when my Christmas program fell through, she invited me to spend the festive dinner with her family. It was one of my best Christmas dinners, and I appreciated very much to celebrate the holidays with such a warm, friendly atmosphere. Warm family atmosphere. So no wonder I will miss Beth very much. Rest in peace, my dear friend. Sincerely, Eva. Okay, and the last one, this is a card from my mom's friend Diane Ward. She actually sent it when my mom was very ill, but it has some nice memories. It said, she said, I'm thinking of you and remembering all the good times, the good skiing and friends at the VOC Silver Star reunion. Here's a photo. Okay, here's a photo of her with her friends Carmen and Barb. Remember all the Nature BC AGM meetings? I think we went to 7, and then she lists where they are. I can't remember them all. Oh, and the nature history camps. McGillivray Pass was the last one we went to. The hiking was always so good, and so was the weather. Love, Diane. So that's what I have from my mom's friends, and now, thank you guys, and now my now my daughter Chaska is going to say a few words.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I just have it on my phone. I'm just gonna. Every year at Christmas, Grandma would make us cookies. My favorites were the oatmeal rollaway cookies with the red and green sprinkles around the edges. I tried making them myself once, but they turned out terrible. And I don't know if she had some kind of secret or something, or if I'm just a terrible cook. The other type that she always made for Christmas was shortbread cookies. I remember helping her make them one year, and as soon as we finished, I wanted to eat them all. Grandma said they had to sit for 2 weeks, and I think it was the longest 2 weeks of my life. I honestly don't know if they tasted any different, but that was the way Grandma always did it. Grandma always really liked history, especially our family history. So when I moved to Edmonton, she would always tell me about the McDougalls and how they helped found the city of Edmonton. The University of Alberta, where I go, had a whole bunch of information about John Alexander McDougall. And I would always read them and send them to her, and then we'd talk about them when I got back to visit. My dad also asked me to read this today. He said, Beth has been a huge part of my life since I became part of this family. She always made me feel like Canada was my home and not just the country I emigrated to. Beth and I bonded around our love for the outdoors. She was an inspiration to me in that regard. I remember her in her 60s going to natural history camps for a week and being dropped off in the mountains in a helicopter and thinking, wow, I hope I can be like her at that age. A few words come to mind when I think of Beth. Caring, smart, conscious, environmentally conscious, an outdoor enthusiast, loving wife, sister, mother, grandmother, and friend. Beth, you'll be greatly missed.
Good afternoon. Well, this is a sad time for my sister Jane and I. We've taken comfort in being able to reflect on what our mom meant to us. We always just saw her as our mom, but we realize now that she led a very interesting life and instilled values and interest in us without us even realizing it. She always raised us to treat people with mutual respect. Her attitude could be summarized with that axiom of treat others as you would like them to treat you. And when we met with Leighton a few days ago to talk about her, he said something that really sort of brought this to light for me. He said that she didn't just talk the talk, she walked the walk. She was active in a number of organizations that focused on the environment and outdoor activity. Plus she gave generously to environmental organizations and Doctors Without Frontiers. One thing we didn't mention in the obituary was her interest in politics. Wilma Parasuk, a good friend of hers, was someone who certainly shared this interest. She sent an email to the MLA for North Vancouver a few days ago to say, "A note to let you know, a terrific woman has died. Beth Wark grew up in North Vancouver. She and I taught ESL in Vancouver for many years. When we grew old and retired, we started a book club in 1998 and continued until the pandemic stopped our meetings. Beth and Charlie Wark were faithful supporters of the NDP and were happy to find kindred spirits at party nomination meetings. It was also a bonding experience for me to find that Beth's son Ed, that's me, became an EA to Sven Robinson when he was an MP, at the same time that their son became an MP, an EA to an MP. I'd also like to thank Wilma and Wilson for putting me in touch with Sven after many years. Sven wrote, "Beth was a kind and compassionate woman who contributed so much to our community." My mom volunteered on a number of NDP campaigns, except for some reason the ones that I managed. It's probably because she knew what a control freak I am and she just didn't want to see that in person. Another memory is from a good friend of mine, Jane Ireland. There are 3 Janes in my life. Jane Ireland, a good friend of mine, Jane Wark, my sister, and Jane Anderson, my wife. So Jane Ireland said, "Beth and Charlie were committed to their riding in Burnaby and were always a welcome sight at meetings and campaigns. But my fondest memories are how they welcomed me into their home and made me feel part of the Wark clan. Beth was a huge support to me over many years, and I loved visiting with her. She had wonderful stories to share, and I know Burnaby will never feel the same without her." That sentiment was also reflected in a note from her friend Linda Kennedy, who wrote that when she moved from Vernon, which was at that time a very small town, in 1956 to attend UBC, Beth took me under her wing, inviting me to her parents' house to enjoy the comforts of home and good home cooking. It became my second home that year. And Linda wasn't the only small-town student she took under her wing while a member of the Varsity Outdoor Club at UBC. Carmen Smith wrote, "As a boy who worked and loved the outdoors but was from small-town Kamloops, I was truly grateful to Beth, who with her parents made us feel so welcome in their home after our hiking and skiing adventures. Discussions with her dad opened up a whole new world to me." Being able to step back and reflect has also made my sister and I realize that she had a sense of curiosity and an adventurous spirit. That's certainly not something that ever would have occurred to us. She was the woman who had the same haircut since 1945, and she was the mom who had dinner on the table at precisely 5:59 every evening so that we could watch the news together as a family. My sister and I both love trying new things and learning about new things, and now we know where we get it from. Our mom certainly didn't get up to the kind of hijinks that we did as teenagers, but that's probably a good thing. It was interesting to hear from her sisters and friends about road trips that they did in the 50s and 60s. My mom was never the greatest driver and found it stressful, but her spirit of adventure helped her overcome that. She even made it down the infamous Bella Coola Hill with my dad in 1964 to visit her sister Jo. Well, he drove. Unfortunately, our aunts Jo and Judy couldn't attend today because they live in the interior, and we're very pleased that our Aunt Sally and Uncle Lou, along with their chauffeur Lynn, are able to be here today with us. Jo has been very supportive over the last few weeks with emails and said that over the last year she really enjoyed her conversations with my mom because my mom seemed more engaged than ever on a variety of issues. Unfortunately, my family can't be here because of the COVID travel restrictions, so they wanted me to pass on their condolences as well too, I guess. So it's my wife Jane, my daughter Sophie and Maggie, and son Malcolm. Whenever my parents would come out to Nova Scotia to visit us, they would always go off on road trips and explore the province, and they've actually seen more of Nova Scotia than I have. And my kids, well, they're not really kids anymore, asked me to include Whirlaway cookies, which Chaska talked about just a minute ago, as one of their fond memories of her. Well, just like Chaska, the first time Sophie made them, it didn't go too well. She got her hair stuck in the blender. So, yeah, it was a little difficult to eat those cookies. But no matter what coast my kids were on, my mom was sure to have Whirlaway cookies. They were either waiting for us in Burnaby when we came here, or if she came out to Nova Scotia, she made them. And then sticking with the topic of food, she always had Purdy's chocolate for our family as well too, even though a box of them cost the same as a monthly car payment. In 2012, she joined my family for a trip to Costa Rica. Her curiosity shone through during that trip as she asked tour guides numerous questions about everything from climate to the food. And at one point, while our family went off and did whitewater rafting, she went on a bird watching trip with another group, and they snuck across the Nicaraguan border. So that was, goes to show you, she's a little adventurous. And then one evening while we were in Costa Rica, we taught her the card game Cheat. And the whole purpose of that game is to get rid of all of your cards by cheating. And my mom actually won the game because nobody expected that she would cheat. Yes, the woman who seemed so reserved on the outside had the ability to surprise us all. Under that exterior was a mischievous person. It's difficult to know how to finish up a eulogy, so I'll simply say thank you to our mom for raising Jane and I so well.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks. It was nice to hear from family, but also friends. Mom's life, again to you, let's say Jane and Ed, was kind of like an uncut diamond. You knew there was value there, but you can't see it until you begin to cut facets in it. And that's these people, right? Sending you emails and meeting with a stranger who cuts a facet, and suddenly you see Mom in a maybe more brilliant light. But it's E.O. White, he's a naturalist. He's probably dead now. He'd be 100 and some years old. Wrote books on speciation and colonization. He says that you become who you are between the ages of 6 and 12. And he says in that time period, your soul takes photographs of certain events. And then, like putting these images on glass plates that you can see life through, that's how you mature and then do all that you do. Somewhere along the way, your mom's adventure spirit was honed. And then there was passion added to it. So there's a phone call, you think you're pretty cool, you know, you're in Austria, cranking it out. Oh yeah, no, I did that in the 50s, okay, whatever. It's like, that's funny. But that's what it's all about, right, today. You say thanks, absolutely. And we just cut a few more facets into that brilliant diamond. One of the ways that we do it is through DVD or slideshow presentation. Photographs, 1/24th of a second captured on film, and then sometimes chronologically, but we get to see Mom at all these different times. We get to see Mom and Dad, you guys young, Mom holding grandchildren. That's the beauty of what we do today. And it can be preserved, it can be kept, it can be shown again. I'm going to make my way to the back, we're going to push play, and we're going to walk through this absolutely fabulous life that Mom had. Thanks for allowing myself and the staff here to see it. That was really nice. It's good to go back, see Mom back in the day. You girls young, all together. She might actually be, in 20 years, the first woman who never had long hair. No, seriously, you mentioned that, right? I was looking for that one photo, No? Oh, she was so much more, Yeah, just a couple of photos. I'm not even sure who it might have been. It might have been you, Sebastian? No, Sebastian? Yeah. Little, reading the paper. Yeah. And you see that absolute moment of comfort and perfection as Grandma's just doing her thing, but with one of her own, It's little things like that. It's one of my greatest, I'm going to say thrill, wrong word, but just to be with you guys to see this. To be able to understand the importance of the single individual as it applies to Misha, not only you being included, but Jane as well, right? And, just that one individual who just brings it all together, and that's Dad, and then it's Mom. So for us to be privileged to be here to see that is a tremendous gift. Thank you for sharing that with us today. One of the most important things you can do is give back to others. She did that in terms of ESL, but she loved the earth and gave back to it. There's a single piece of poetry, which maybe I'll end with. Well, it says, she achieved success because she lived well, laughed often, loved much, gained the respect of intelligent men and women, and the love of grandchildren. She accomplished her tasks, filled her niche, and never lacked appreciation for Earth's beauty or failed to express it. She looked for the best in others, gave the best she had. Because of that, she was, is, always will be an inspiration. That's just a simple piece of poetry. And then, like I said to you guys, Robert Service talks about the end of the trail. Waves a leap in the laughing sun, they call to me as of yore, but alas, my errant days are done, I'll rove no more, no more. Life, you've been good to me. But fastest feet must fail. And then there comes that simple last walk of me at the end of the trail. It goes on from there, but that to me is Mom. There's so many pictures of her in incredibly beautiful spots that you can't get there unless you walk, The reward that was hers after maybe a good hike, and then you're standing there and you're looking at this spot that, you can't buy that. You have to earn it. And yet she comes to the end of the trail. I believe that as she walked through that valley of shadow of death, she didn't fear any evil, and she knew that this would be her last walk. And then there was family on the other side. Mom and Dad, Charlie, family. And they would have applauded as she made her way across that void. And all of them would have said, well done, Beth. Well done. You see, regardless of how old you are when you pass, I think that's what you want heart and soul to know, that you've done it, that you did what you needed to do. Maybe her only failure was not passing that cookie recipe on to granddaughters. Getting hair caught in the blender is not a good thing, but well done. And so to Margaret and Elizabeth Work, well done, girl. You done did it. That's not good English, but that does come from the heart. To all of you that had the opportunity to be with her, to June and Joe and Jane and grandkids in the East, to all of you, congratulations on winning the lotto on this one. Now may the Lord bless and keep Beth. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you that are here today. And to the staff at Bull Chapel that gave us the opportunity to be here. Jorgie, thank you for all that you do. A blessing to each and every one of you. Be safe, be successful, be generous until we're through this age of pandemic. God bless.
This is